Hey, 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 everyone. We are live now on YouTube. I am stoked out of my mind. I am here with an amazing, hey, 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 everyone. We are live now on all the way on youth from Australia. You guys, listen. I am Dr. Tina D. Lewis. I am the founder and creator of Global Women Speakers. We are the number one platform for women to share their message, sell their products and their service, and network with women around the globe. I am honored. I'm absolutely blown away that I get to sit here with the founder of Elements of Success. How many of you, by a show of hands, need a few elements, one or two, or maybe all the elements to be successful? Raise your hand. Go ahead and comment in this comment section. Let us know if you are here for at least one, two, three, or all of the elements. Because I'm here to tell you that Kylie has extreme experience in building a foundation, right? And so before I go any further, I am rarely seldom at a loss for words, but to have her here in person all the way from Australia, she is my Aussie sister. So Kylie, do me a favor. I just simply want you to say hi to the ladies and the men that are listening to this or that will catch the live, right? Catch the replay. Say hello to them and just give them a snippet of who you really are. Not what you do, but who you are. Kylie, over to you.
Tina, thank you so much for such an incredible introduction. I am so excited. It has been a hot minute since we caught up live in person to hug each other in New York. But even across the other side of the world, I love the fact that this platform allows us the opportunity to connect and deep dive and create those stronger relationships because it just feels like picking up where we left off. Um, so I'm Kylie Leota. I am from Brisbane, Australia, and I am just someone who is so passionate about empowering others to create a life of their own design. And in actual fact, my business name, Elements for Success, came about from my getting my head around what did success really look like, and it felt quite unattainable for me at different periods in my life as a single mum leaving DV to sit there and go, okay, where do I go now? And so Earl Nightingale has this definition that says that success is the progressive realization of a worthy goal or ideal. And what
Oh,
I
wow.
help people,
Kylie, we have something here on Sunday Speaker Series. It's called Pause Break. You said that so fast. I want you to repeat that because there are men and women that are listening to this and they will need to catch that Earl Nightingale's nugget, okay? And so I want you to repeat that. Success is.
the progressive realization of a worthy goal or ideal. And by that, I mean a worthy goal or ideal for you, not something that society creates upon us, or not somebody that your parents think you should do, or not somebody that, your work colleagues think. So a progressive realization of a worthy goal or ideal that's important to you. And how do we help you achieve that?
Wow. I am enthralled with your idea of helping people have literally the toolkit, the building blocks, the blueprint for success. I mean, you were extremely successful entrepreneur and you're a mom as well, but it always was not that way. That was not your case. No one handed you a platinum or a gold spoon, right? Not at all. Silver
No,
spoon? No, not at all.
no, not. I didn't even know anyone that went into business until I went into business. My world was surrounded with workers, people that went to a job for every day for 40, 50 years. I didn't even know. I honestly, I have to say, I was an accidental business owner, accidental entrepreneur, because I kind of fell into it. And now I couldn't even imagine a life that was different from this. I couldn't even imagine going back to a job. But in the first
Absolutely.
instance, I never even had that model in my life to begin with.
Okay, so Kylie, that's incredible. The fact, like people fall into different things, never
Mhm.
fall into entrepreneurship. So I love that. So if you had to share just three things that were
Mhm.
challenges for you as a brand new entrepreneur that did not have a mentor, an inheritance, a savings, or even a blueprint to be an entrepreneur, how did
Mhm.
that work for you?
So, we talk about having mentors and models and stuff like that, and I certainly did not have it in my immediate world. The beauty of the internet is you can go and look for people that are in alignment with you. And what
Yes.
I probably, I don't know if I'm a bit different from others. I recognized that I loved a little bit of this person and a little bit of this person and a little bit of, and I took the bits, the nuggets that really resonated for me. I left the rest and I created my own model based on what was going to work for me versus some cookie cutter model that said, okay, well, you need to follow this model of practice, or you need to follow this, or you need to follow that. That was never how I operated ever. So I wasn't about to start now. So I worked on figuring that out. So figuring out what worked for me, going to find models and mentors. I think, you know, excuses are valid. We can all make excuses about why we do or don't do something. But at the end of the day, it's a bit like I could sit there and say, I'm not going to exercise because I work really long hours. I have 3 children. I'm going to be a neglectful parent if I spend more time away from them. When they were
Wow.
younger, I just got up earlier and did the exercise rather than, trying to make an excuse, which was valid. I was a single mum of 3 kids with no support.
Are you kidding me? Valid. Are you kidding me?
Very valid
Those
to
were real
excuses
solid
about,
excuses, right?
right? Valid. But was it going to get me fit and healthy? No, it wasn't. So I had to figure out a way to work around that. So I flipped the script on my exercise routine. And just before, I actually injured myself in 2019, but prior to that, I'd been the fittest I'd ever been. But even during that injury, that made me recalibrate my life and go, I think the universe was giving me a lesson. I think it had tried to give it to me subtly for a few years, wasn't listening. And I think the injury was the universe going, sit down, listen, pay attention. You're
Oh, that.
not in alignment. Yep. And you need to start doing this now. So from 2019, I recovered from an injury. 2020, I started at as you do in a global pandemic, start a business, leave a secure job as a single mum of 3 kids with no financial backing. Sure, that's a smart thing to do. And I remember someone asked me once, what's the scariest thing that you did? And I said, leaving a full-time secure job in the middle of the pandemic to start a business. But what I love doing, and I think, we talk about turning your passion into a job, and I don't think that's necessarily right for everybody. I don't think that's necessarily good advice, but what I do think is that you have to love what you do. And I think you have to be energized by what you do. And that there's that saying that says choose your hard, right? Being married's hard, being single's hard, choose your hard. Running a business versus working in a government job or working in a corporate job, they're both hard. So choose your hard, but
Yes.
love what you do. And when I fell out of love with what I was doing in my job, I had to fall in love with something else. And that has been business and entrepreneurship.
I love that. I mean, Kylie, like honestly, like you're not being paid to be here at
No.
all. You are here giving these gems, right? These strategies, these hacks, right?
Yeah.
You are here giving this blueprint complimentary. It's because of your passion. And so,
Yeah.
two things. Number one is, once again, I thank you from the top of my heart for being here, for pouring into the women that want to become an entrepreneur, the
Mm.
early stage entrepreneurs, and the ones who are already crushing 7, 8, 9 figures, right? Because we all
Mm.
still can learn from each other. And so, you talked about not having a mentor. You also talked about being so resourceful that you were going to make it happen no matter what.
Yeah. And there's a book by a lady called Glennon Doyle, and her book is called Untamed. And she said in her book, she said, my children don't need me to save them. They need to watch me save myself. And
What? Pause break. Remember, pause break here at Global Women Speakers on our Sunday speaker series. We have something called pause break. Like that was huge. I'm going to have to go ahead and press rewind so you can
yeah,
see it again. We're listening.
my children don't need me to save them. They need to watch me save myself.
Wow.
And that was like a knife through the heart, because I always go back to, what am I modeling right now? If I'm going to a job that I hate and I come home and I don't have any energy for anyone because I'm burnt out and I'm grumpy and I'm doing all these things, what am I modeling for them right now? I'm telling you that my values are family and love and connection, and I'm coming home in a misalignment. So, the best thing that I can do for my children is, if you don't like your circumstances, you have the power to change it, and then watch me do it, so that I could then as they're going through their life, if they're going through something hard, they get the power to change it because they don't have to rely on somebody giving them a handout. They don't have to rely on, good luck. They've been modeled problem solving tools over and over and over again. And it doesn't mean that everything goes perfectly all the time either. And so when things are not going well, how do I reflect, review, and recalibrate and get myself back on track, step
Oh,
back into my alignment, and go from there?
Kylie, we have a question. One of the questions is, who is the author of the book?
The book Infinite Leadership.
The book that
Oh,
you
sorry,
gave.
the book
Oh,
Untamed. Glennon Doyle. So Glennon Doyle is married to Abby Wambach, and they've got a few different things going on. They've got a podcast called "You Can Do Hard Things," I believe.
wow.
But Glennon Doyle is an American author, and she's an amazing individual. And I just have so much admiration for people that not only talk about doing the hard things, but actually work through the hard things and come out the other side.
Speaking of doing the hard things, coming out on the other side, that is you, my sister. It is such an honor to have you here. So, our lot of people are like, okay, we want to know, like, did you said you didn't come from money,
Nope.
right? You said you had to do the hard things. And so we want to know what was the most challenging thing that you had to overcome being a mom, number one, and two, in your business. So, Kylie, over to you.
So I think, it's really interesting because I know that I'm on this podcast and everyone's going, oh my gosh, she's so confident. She's so out there. She's so this, not
They
confident
are.
growing up. And that lack of confidence let me fall into relationships that weren't necessarily healthy. They weren't robust, and they were, in some instances, very unhealthy, which led to domestic violence. So when my youngest son was 2, my ex-husband was arrested for the second time after an incident with domestic violence, and in that moment, I had to choose what I was going to do. And one of the challenges is when you're dealing with somebody that you love and care about, and the thing about domestic violence that people don't talk about is it's never all bad. Like it's never 100% bad all the time, right? So we justify and we, explain away and we do all these things. Also, when you don't have confidence, they tell you that it's your fault and you believe them. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on in that. But what I did do was I wanted my children to grow up knowing that it wasn't okay for someone to treat them like that, and it wasn't okay for them to be treated like that. So what was I modeling for them right now by staying? And that's what gave me the courage to leave. And that has been an ongoing evolution of my life, is the fact that it's not about not going through adversity, because I think everybody goes through adversity at some way, stage. I don't think anybody gets through this life clean. I think each and one of us has to go through something, but it's about how you pick yourself up afterwards. It's about grace, compassion, forgiveness for the circumstance you found yourself in, to be able to move forward, to get the better outcomes moving forward. And that was kind of the precursor to my model around infinite leadership, because it was started with self. What did I need to do from a self leadership model to get myself out? Because at the end of the day, if you can't lead yourself, then you can't lead anybody else, whether it be as a
Absolutely not.
parent, whether as it be an entrepreneur, whether it be as corporate. You've got to learn to lead yourself first, right? And you've got to know yourself well enough to lead yourself, to then be able to lead others. So from a parenting point of view, in business and in life, it started off with um, people not understanding the way that I operated. And I remember I was doing this job once. I had a contract when I was working in the government, and I remember the boss coming in and saying, "Hey, we're not renewing your contract." And I'm like, "What?" It was the first time that had ever happened to me, and I was absolutely devastated because I personalized it so much that there was something wrong with me. And what was really interesting is when he decided to give me feedback that I hadn't asked for, by the way, he decided to give me feedback around what I needed to work on. I then went for another job. And in actual fact, the things that he said were a problem in that organization were the exact reasons I got employed in the next organization, because this person felt that I spent too much time with a particular type of community. I was employed at this organization to develop relationships with the same community
No
because I
way.
had community. So, feedback is subjective. I think we have to be really clear about we have to, hear it and decide what we're going to take on board and not on board. And I recognize at that moment, I was so gutted around what he said, but recognize he didn't really know me very well if that's what he thought of me. But in actual fact, that's what actually got me employed in the other roles. My connection to community, my empathy, my out of the box thinking for traditional problems, my very innovative ideas, that was, and that's a, I recognize now in hindsight, that is the only reason I lasted in government so long in the first place, is because I was always really innovative. I worked with complex behavior. I worked with kids that didn't fit a mold, and I had to be innovative to get them over the line and through the system and all that kind of stuff. And that level of innovation has been what's gotten me through in my entrepreneurship as well. I didn't think I was very creative, but I'm actually super creative all of the
I
time.
love that. I love that for multiple reasons. One of them is simply, growing in an environment, right? Most people will, in any environment, I will say that you either will flourish or you will die. And I'm so happy you went where you were celebrated and not where you were tolerated, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think again, going back to that thing though, as a single parent, I felt like I had to stay for a long
Mm.
time because I felt that was a responsible, dutiful thing to do, to stay in this very secure job. And it wasn't until I questioned what I was modeling for my children that gave me the courage to then pivot and move into something else that was more aligned with what my skills and values were.
Yeah. Kylie, I just feel that we have to be the type of plant or tree that grows wherever we're planted. And
Yeah,
sometimes, a plant outgrows the pot. And
for
so
sure.
you wouldn't have never left because that was your security. You were a
Yeah,
single mom.
yeah.
However, I believe you can say God, the universe, the ancestors, the spirit, whatever, it moved you out of that environment by having him not renew your contract. It was
Mm.
actually a favor. He did you a favor.
Yeah, and there's a concept that says things don't happen for you that to you, that happen for you, and I've really struggled to reconcile that idea because I see so much really horrible adverse things that happen in the universe. I can't even fathom how that happens, but I can get my head around this concept of wisdom in the wounds.
Yes.
That was a wound that I suffered when I didn't renew that contract. But what was the wisdom that I was taking away from that? I could either take the wisdom that I needed to be this version of him that actually would not have made me successful in another environment. Or I could take away the wisdom that I needed to be more discerning in the feedback that I engaged with and find people in my world that were going to be the loving critics for me. As Tasha Eurich talks about, she says, find the loving critics, the people that are going to be the biggest champions, but
Yeah.
equally call you out because they want you to be a better version of yourself.
Absolutely.
Mm.
They want you to succeed, right?
Yeah,
Their criticism is not to tear you down, right? It's
no,
no at all. It is to lift you up, and we all need those things, right? So,
yeah, with love, right?
like I want the women that are listening that want to start a business that feel that they do not have what it takes. I want you to give them three skill sets, three talents, three
Mm.
attributes that they already have, right? Not that they can go get and they have to learn, but three that they already have on the inside. That if they just allow that to flourish, they allow it to grow, they allow it to take root, and they trust themselves enough to bring it into fruition. What are those three characteristics? Because I know someone is listening, and I know, ladies, you're saying, you know what, but I just don't have this. I don't want you to focus on what you don't have. I want you to focus, and I encourage you to literally shine a light on what you do have, because I know without a shadow of a doubt, and Kylie can agree with me, that what you need, you already possess. Kylie, is that true? Touch on that for a moment.
Oh, for sure. And I think so often we look at what other people do and go, oh, I need to be like that, rather than just walking in alignment with yourself. So, my first piece is always around identity. Own who you are, understand who you are, and align yourself in situations that allow you to walk in your zone of genius as to who you are, instead of feeling like, it's like people that are really, really emotional, putting themselves in jobs where they're not allowed to be emotional. there's such a misalignment. You actually cannot be successful in that kind of environment for sustainable periods of time. You can do it short term. And I think, the other part of it too is we all have a zone of genius and we all have a zone of competence. We can do lots of things as women, we can do lots of things as entrepreneurs, but
Yeah.
we get stuck in our zone of competence, the things that we do well that over a period of time drain our energy, then aligning with our zone of genius, which is things that we do really well, but give us energy, because 5 hours can feel like 5 minutes when you're in your zone of genius, as opposed to your zone of frustration where 5 minutes feels like 5 hours, right? So understanding, and as an entrepreneur, I can tell you the very first thing that I did was outsource my invoicing because I hate it. I hate invoicing. I hate reconciling my books. It is like the biggest drag. I would procrastinate like you have no idea how long I could drag that task out because it's not my zone of genius. I
Right.
like the money to come in because I need money to run my business,
Absolutely. Accounts receivable. Absolutely.
but I don't like sending the invoicing. And, there's that book, Psychology of Money. You got to understand your own blockers that get in the way. And again, that comes back to identity and our stories and our narratives that have often been bestowed upon us. We tend to take on identities of that somebody else has given us and we've put on like a shirt as opposed to walking in alignment with who we are. So the very first thing I did was understand my zone of genius, which is peopling. I love peopling. I love this stuff. This stuff gives me energy, particularly with really inspiring people like yourself. So if I've got a choice
Kiddo,
between
kiddo, kiddo.
reconciling my books and peopling with people that inspire me, I'm going to pick peopling every single time. But I still need to do the other thing, right? Because I still need money coming in. So the very first thing was I worked out how much it would cost me to get a bookkeeper, and I worked out how much per hour or how much extra time I would have to work to allow myself to employ. That was my very first staff purchase, right? So that's number one. Well, number one's the identity piece, understand yourself well enough. Number two is understand your zone of genius, your zone of frustration, and your zone of competence. And where possible, outsource the zone of frustration stuff for sure, because it's such a
Love it.
waste of time to
Your
do it.
zone of genius, your zone of frustration. I
Yeah.
love
And
that.
yeah. And, we can't always spend, or well, the goal is to spend 80% plus of our day in our zone of genius, right? Because
Yes.
that is where we're
Absolutely.
creating magic.
Absolutely.
Um, and we do spend a bit of time in our zone of competence, things that we can do better than most people, but we do it for a long period of time and it's pretty draining. And our zone of frustration is just that stuff that we just don't exhaust exhausting, right? So that would, and my third piece of advice would be your ecosystem. And what I learned was that you need to do an energy audit of the people, the places, the situations, and the conversations that you are having, and notice where you are getting energy and where you are draining energy. Because the minute people in entrepreneurship have to think a little bit differently, and people think you're crazy. So if you're going to spend your whole time in an environment where people are telling you crazy, what are you going to feel? You're going to feel crazy. If you spend time in a room where people are inspired by these ideas and visions that you have, you're going to be energized, which then allows you to go back into your zone of genius and
Um,
align with your identity, all of those things. And one of the things, a really harsh lesson I had is that people are prepared to support you to the level of their comfort.
Woo, you already know, pause break. You already know. What do we have here? What do we call this, Kylie?
Yeah, the pause break, my friend, the pause break.
Yes, a pause break. So I
Yeah.
need you, because ladies, I know that you're listening and I know you're taking copious notes. I know you're very meticulous, but I want you to catch this. Put on your mitt and catch this ball that she is throwing. She literally just stated that people will support you to a certain level, that they will support you to a certain level, not the level of your abilities, not the level of your capabilities, not the level of your genius, of your expertise, or your competency. They will support you. How, Kayla? Kylie? Tell them how will they support you?
People will support you to the level of their comfort. And when you start to step above that, they will try and shrink you. And
Sabotage. You guys
yeah, and
communicators, right? They will support you to their level of comfort. So if they have already put you in a perfect little box of simply just being a mom, right? And
Yeah.
you tell them I have this idea that's going to give me time freedom, that's going to give me cash flow, that's going to allow me to spend more time with my children, that's going to allow me to travel, and that's not in their mindset, it's outside of their comfort zone, then I can tell you this. They're going to say, oh, why would you do that? I know, come on, I'm reading somebody's mail. How many of you have had somebody somewhere say that and do that? And we're not saying that they're bad people. We're just
No.
saying that it's to their comfort level. Right, Kylie?
And yeah, and I think sometimes it's unconscious on their behalf. Their own fears play out in, oh, why do you need to leave? For me, it's Brisbane, Australia. Like I came over to New York this year. That's where we hung
Yes. And matter of fact, another
out.
pause break. I want to give a huge shout out to none other than Shar Moore for putting
Yeah,
together the project, the Impact Book, and that is how we met. Shar is an amazing entrepreneur within herself as well, ladies and gentlemen. And so we always want to give homage, right, to the
yeah,
people that are connectors, that connect us together. I fell in love with Kylie immediately, right? And
yeah.
like not just like-minded women, but like-hearted. That's really what's important to me. And Kylie is like-hearted. And so, Kylie, once again, thank you for being here. And on another note,
Mm,
I can't let you slide past domestic violence. I just have to say,
mm.
I'm glad that you are a survivor. And to the women who are suffering or in the midst of domestic violence, Kylie, I would love for you to give them a message. But for those of you who got out, for those of you who are still alive, for those of you who are thriving after domestic violence, for those of you who absolutely like you got out of it, or you almost were into it, or it just you just escaped it by the skin of your teeth. We are praying for you. We are totally support you 1000%. And Kylie, you being a former I would say DV recipient, because I
Mm.
mean, yeah, so
Well, it goes back to those labels we were talking about, right? So this identity was a DV victim, a label that I could wear accurately. Yeah, it was. Did it serve me? No, it didn't. Did even the DV survivor label fit me? Yeah, it did. Did it serve me? No, it didn't. So now I talk about those wisdom in the wounds and being able to help people navigate. I remember sitting in my office one day and there was a lady in my office and she came from a very low socioeconomic background. She was looking at me in my position in the organization and thinking I couldn't possibly relate to what she was going through. And we sat there, and when she was talking about her story, I just looked at her and I said, yeah, I know. And at that moment, she went, oh, you do know. And I went, yeah, I do. And that was a shift in trust and connection for us that completely changed our relationship, right? And I think for people, I do not underestimate the fact that I am here when so many others are not to tell their story. And for the families that are left behind from those experiences, my love to you, that it is one of the most horrific things that you'll go through. I think as people that have left, people think, this is my 10th year anniversary of escaping. And people think,
woo! Pause break, 10 years. Woo!
yes. But people,
Yes,
but
yes,
people think because it was 10 years ago that it doesn't affect me.
right.
There are still things now that will happen that will really impact, and I'll need to regroup. They don't necessarily
Yes,
burst. I can have this conversation without crying now, winning, because I think it's important to talk about. Domestic violence hides in the shadows. It hides in the shadows of conversations of people not talking about it. And in actual fact, in Queensland, we've just brought in legislation only a month or so ago around coercive control, which is often a precursor to the domestic violence itself, right? So, leading the way, we have now said in Queensland, Australia, that coercive control, where that intimidation, that bullying, that doesn't quite fit the DV narrative, but it's a precursor. We know the likelihood of this is happening, we're going to end up there. And now there's laws
absolutely.
in Queensland that are going to prevent that. And, I'm so proud of that particular piece of
A
work because
huge shout
it's so,
out to Queensland, because
yeah.
somebody has to stand up, right? If we don't stand up for something, we're going to fall for everything. And I just literally want to say that, I cannot fathom someone being physically harming to myself.
Yeah.
Um, I can say that I think I shared this with you before, that
Yes.
I was the abuser,
Mm,
right, and had no idea that it mattered because they were men, right? And in my mind, only women were being abused and the
mm,
male was the abuser. So,
mm,
ladies, I want to say that it comes in different sizes, different shapes. Something about domestic violence is that it does not have a socioeconomic, it does not have a race, it does not have a religion, it does not have a gender. It is
mm.
something that affects every and all people and all cultures around the globe. And so,
Yeah.
if you had to give someone, Kylie, if you had to give a woman some advice,
Mm,
just some encouragement,
yeah.
something that she can take right now and put in her toolkit. So when she needs it, that it's there. What would that thing
Mm.
be?
I think, there's that idea that we shrink ourselves for others. And I think understanding who you are, and there's an African entrepreneur, actually, his name is Busi Thembekweyo, and he has a saying that identity is man-made, thereby it can be man-changed. So you change it to person-made, person-changed. But if you don't like the identity that you currently have, it means that you can change it. You are not bestowed to live the life of this narrative or this identity that somebody else has given you. So if you're in an abusive relationship and you're hearing these things about you're not worthy, you're not this, you're not that, you can actually choose to change that. And whilst it sounds really overwhelming in the moment, it is possible because I'm living proof that it is possible. And, people can sit there and go, well, it's easy for you. Well, it wasn't easy. And there are many times where I started and failed and started and failed, but it has been a continuous journey for me to keep picking myself up. And there's a Japanese saying that says fall down seven, get up eight. Sometimes it can feel like fall down 77, get up 88, or fall down 700 and get up 800. It it's whether we rise and how we rise that matters, right? And that's what resilience is. It's not about not failing and it's not about not
At
falling.
all.
It's about how you pick up yourself. And I remember, I've been through lots of, I've started looking at my own patterning of what happened in those relationships that I would find myself in. And part of it is that I'm a really empathetic person. I work and I didn't, but the
Yes.
thing about that is it's easy to go, well, I won't be empathetic anymore. But I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be a non empathetic person. I want to be someone who shows up with love and care and compassion and empathy for others. What I have to do is be guarded about who I give it to because not everyone deserves your energy,
Wow.
right?
That's it right there. That's it.
And,
That that's a word. That
and
that's
I think,
that's huge.
yeah. And for me, discerning who I was going to give that energy to was part of my journey. It's the same with the text messages, right? Have you ever gone to send a text message from somebody's messaged you and you're like, oh, I don't think so. How am I going to send this message back to them? And you start to type something. And have you ever paused and went, wow, if I decide that my identity is built up in being kind, compassionate, caring, empathetic, loving, generous, is that text message I'm about to send any of those things? Right now,
Right.
I've given away my power to the other person on the other end of the phone. So my part of that is walk back in alignment with who I am, walk back in my own power. And I think anybody, whether they're going through domestic violence or not, walking back in your own power because we give it away so easily to people that don't deserve it for so many times. And whether that be the text message, whether it be the email, whether it be the social media post or whatever it is, who are you? What's your identity? What are
Right.
those values that you have, and how are you walking in alignment with that instead of you're giving away your power to somebody else?
Yes. Wow, this has been awesome. And we are not done yet. Ladies and gentlemen, grab your water, go use the ladies' room, do what you have to do because we are going to totally resume this talking about business, talking about tools, talking about strategies that you can implement right now in your business to be successful. She's going to give you the elements of success. Hey, that's the name of her business. That is not just the name of her business, but that is what she embodies. She uses, like, some people just talk about it, right? Some people say, hey, I heard, or you should try this. These are proven strategies that Kylie has used herself in her business. And Kylie, let's talk about your business, okay? Let's talk about how we talked about you not having it in the beginning, how you had nobody to leave a clue for you, no one who wrote a blueprint, no one who had a strategy, no one who had a GPS that showed you or taught you or trained you or mentored you how to be an entrepreneur, right?
Mm,
You just
mm,
woke up and said, this is what I need to do for my
mm,
peace, for my sanity. And so
mm,
I'm sure, ladies, some of you are saying the same thing. You want peace, you want sanity, but most importantly, you want options, you want
mm,
alternatives, and you can get that through entrepreneurship. I'm not going to tell you that it's easy at
mm,
all, because I'm going to tell you, as an entrepreneur, if you don't hunt, you do not eat. It's
mm.
not doing the bare minimum Monday through Friday, knowing that you're still going to get a check on Friday evening. It's not that at all. As an entrepreneur, you must show up and operate in excellence in order to create the business, the lifestyle, and the legacy that you dream of. So, Kylie, please tell us more about Elements for Success. Exactly what is it? What is it that Elements of Success does? What do you do?
Yeah, so we're a global transformation organization that helps people create a life of their design, whether that be individually, in their teams, in their organizations, or in entrepreneurship. And one of the things that I think I'm so exceptionally passionate about is, like you just talked about, it is taking that theory and actually putting it into practice, because you can go to all of these places, you can read a book, but how many people actually implement? And I'm a walking, talking model of what implementation actually looks like. And in actual fact, it's so funny. I remember I was doing a workshop one day and this lady was talking. She goes, put up your hand if you've this, and put up your hand if you've done that. Put up your, and I had my hand up every single time. And the guy next to me goes, is there anything you haven't done? But that comes from willing to have a go and removing my ego from looking good while I'm doing it, right? So how often do we stop ourselves because we're worried about what people will think of us? We're so worried about what people will say. We're so worried
Yes,
about
yes,
fail or whatever. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you got to get that ego in check a little bit, because you're going to stuff it up at some point. And some things aren't going to work. And I have had many examples of those experiences, but that resilience piece about picking yourself back up. But the biggest thing that I think gets in people's way is ego. And you have to have an ego to be an entrepreneur, but you have to have a healthy ego, and one that is checked often and regularly by yourself, but also, again, those loving critics that we talked about earlier, not people that are going to try and tear you down for being visionary and having ideas and thinking differently and thinking creatively. Surround yourself in the right rooms with people that are going to be inspired and aspire to be like yourself. But if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, my friend. Every
absolutely.
single time.
Inspire to aspire before you expire. I'm going to
Yeah.
say that again. I'm going to say that again. Inspire. Oh, yeah. Pause break. I love Kylie. She catches on quick, you guys. Listen, matter of fact, can you do me a favor? If you are watching this for the very first time, I want to ask you to do us two things. One, if you're getting any value out of anything, comment below. Okay. Just hashtag your number one nugget. Number two, go and follow Kylie. Listen, she's giving you this for a reason, because she cares, right? There's a saying that said people don't care what you know until they know that you care. And she's empathetic, not
Mm,
sympathetic, but she's empathetic. She didn't have a mentor, so she can be your mentor. You want to hire a mentor that's been where you're going. I have a saying, you can't lead where you've never been, you can't teach what you don't know, and you definitely can't give what you do not have. And
mm.
Kylie fits and checks all three of those boxes. So go ahead and follow her. Kylie, give them your social media platform, your LinkedIn account, and your website. Kylie, go ahead and share that with the audience.
Yeah, so Kylie Leota, so KYLEELEOTA on LinkedIn, and Elements number 4 Success on Instagram. And my website is www.elementsnumber4success.com.au.
I love that. I love it. Elements for success. And so, do you have maybe a free download or something like a toolkit that has some of the tools for success?
Yeah, on my Elements for Success page, all of the visual models that are in my book, Infinite Leadership, are actually available for download on the website. So you can access any and all that resonate with you, from the emotion wheel when you look at the nurturing pillar, down to the graphic around the roadrunner and the Wile E. Coyote when we're talking about the skills gap trap, as a visual. You can download any and all of them. I've got lots of tools on there for free. You can go in and find them on the website under Infinite Leadership, and there's free resources to download. And my book's available on Amazon as well, if it would interest you to buy a copy. But all the tools are available for free download.
Okay, so I just got a text message and I was actually texting back. It says,
Mm.
she is phenomenal. How
Oh,
does she mentor, how does she mentor people who are in the States?
I love my United States peeps. I'm an
Yes,
early bird.
she's
So
my sister.
yeah, so I get on and do executive coaching. I'm available because the time that I get up in the morning aligns with the US afternoon, usually midday to afternoon. So, I'm happy to work around and find a time that works for you. And I think that, there's a few different ways of doing it, but I find the most effective way for entrepreneurship in the beginning is the one-to-one, purely because your journey is individual. You can't get into groupthink or comparisonitis by looking at where you are in the journey. So at different stages in your journey, obviously being in the group stuff is really, really important, and being inspired and aspiring to be like. But I think when you've got to problem solve those nuggets for yourself, I think getting into that individual, just getting some really big runs on the board, build that momentum, get to where you want to go. I think that is the best way to move forward.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, so Kylie, here's some questions that are awesome. Okay, so
Yes.
let's go to the questions. Here are two.
Yep.
Number one is, wow, how, wow, this is awesome. Okay, there's so many. Oh my gosh. We're talking about infinite leadership. They want to know what's your biggest challenge and putting into practice, and how do you help people? Like, so I guess for me, I'm going to put some of these questions in one. Kylie, you are successful. You had challenges and struggles and obstacles, just like anyone building a true business, right?
Yep. Yep.
So please let me know, please let me know right now, how would the infinite leadership, how would elements for success, how would it help other people?
Yeah. So I guess the infinite leadership model was born out of, what did I do that helped me get that momentum moving forward? And how did I think, in school we talk about you should study, but no one actually teaches you how to study, and I think it's the same with reflective practices. You need to have a really strong reflective practice if you want to be an entrepreneur, or you want to be in business, or you want to be a leader, but no one actually teaches you how to do it. So the pillars of infinite leadership, I'm just going to run through really quickly, the first I is identity, because it always, always, always starts with self. N is nurturing, which is that not only emotional intelligence, but emotional agility. How do you recalibrate yourself when things don't go to plan? And I think, TikTok has done wonders for raising awareness around self awareness, but there's a concept in psychology called DBT, which is dialectical behavior therapy. But I have a different DBT, which is diagnosis by TikTok, where people go on and they get into this. But it's
Is there
great.
a diagnosis by TikTok? Ladies,
Yes.
listen. I know there's a lot of hypochondriacs, and when you have something going on with you, you're like, let me go see what they say about it on TikTok or Dr. Google. Yeah, I get it.
It's been great. It says, help you develop awareness of your feelings. Absolutely. But what it doesn't do is when it's okay to have those feelings, and in context and relevance. So emotional intelligence, important. Emotional agility is navigating that piece, and that social awareness piece and social management piece is how to understand and feel your feels, but behave in an appropriate context. The third one is fearlessness. And I think,
Really.
fearlessness for me is
I
not
love
the
that.
absence of fear. It's about moving through fear.
Yeah.
And, there's a story that talks about the Native American buffaloes is the only animal to run towards a storm when it is occurring. The cows run away from the storm. It's not because they love the storm, it's because they recognize they're going to get through it faster if they run towards it than they run away from it. So fearlessness is around really understanding what the true core fear is versus the fears that we think that we might have, really deep and understanding. Then we've got
Woo.
innovation.
You're gonna have to slow down. You're gonna have to slow down because this is so powerful. Ladies and gentlemen, this is powerful. I hope you have your pen and your paper. Your pen and your paper. It is imperative. Listen, I've spoken to Kylie multiple times. The reality is, I've heard her say this multiple times, but even I am taking copious notes. Why? Because you guys, repetition is a mother of skill. Hearing, 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 faith coming by hearing and hearing, 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 hearing. And so I'm taking notes, copious notes. I hope you are too, because when I can't reach Kylie, I'm going to have this in my toolkit. Something's going to happen in your life, in your business, that you're going to be able to have to draw from somewhere, right? It's about being prepared. Correct, Kylie?
For sure.
And
And,
so you said these will help us, correct?
yeah, yeah. So we've covered identity, nurturing, fearlessness. The next couple of pillars are innovation, right? Which I think entrepreneurs are really, really good at. But how do you constantly innovate and innovate yourself from being stuck? Not just innovate and as in I've come up with this really great idea for this really great product or really great service. How do you innovate yourself when you're not getting the outcomes that you want? The next one is nobility, and I touched on this a little bit earlier. Ego, how ego plays up in our ability. Nobility is not about royalty. Nobility is about showing up in the service of others. And the entrepreneurs that show up because they want to make a good buck is one thing. The most successful entrepreneurs want to improve something for somebody else. They don't want people to go through an experience like they've had. They want to have, they're struck by wanting to make a difference in the world. And that's nobility, right? Then we get into influence. And influence we think about as communication. How do we communicate with people? But influence foundationally is also something that we talk about a lot in corporate, but we don't talk about a lot out of corporate, which is
Okay.
creating psychological safety. And
Wow. That's a pause break.
yeah.
Influence is creating psychological safety. Now, that I have never heard before. It's so profound. You guys, listen. We're not talking about being an influencer. We're not talking about taking selfies, right? We're not talking about those things. Yes, that is
Um,
influence, but it's talk about being safe, safety,
yeah.
safety. Wow.
And
Can you elaborate on that, Kylie? Because that
yeah.
hit a chord. That hit a chord.
So, psychological safety is this idea that we can show up as ourselves and be fully accepted, and that we're not going to get in
Wow.
trouble if we make a mistake, and we're not going to, all these kind of things. And there's a big push in corporate sectors to create psychologically safe environments, but it kind of I loathe to say that a lot of it's become quite tokenistic versus authentic. And so I also sit there and I see a lot of people saying an organization needs to provide this to me. And I'm like, well, how do you provide it for yourself?
For yourself.
As an
Oh,
entrepreneur, it's a lonely journey. So there's four pillars of psychological safety, right? So the first pillar is inclusion. What do I need to feel like I belong? What do I need to do? And, how do I create a sense of belonging? So as an entrepreneur, what does it mean for you to feel like you belong in what is quite often a pretty lonely world, right? To
yes,
start with. But
absolutely.
also, how do you create a sense of belonging in your ecosystem that you've got people in your world that you know that you can reach out to, that you can connect with, that you feel like you belong, you feel like you're accepted. And belonging is different from fitting in, remember? Like fitting in is about pretending to be something that you're not to feel accepted.
Absolutely.
We want belonging where you can walk in, warts and all, after an ugly cry because something didn't go wrong in the business, and
Yes.
people are going to go, Yeah, sister, I got you. Come on, let's go, right? So
Hugs,
that's
hugs, right? Hugs,
yeah,
all of it. Yeah.
inclusion safety. You belong here, no matter what you're going
Yeah.
through.
I love that.
Learner safety, which is something that we're terrible at giving ourselves, is grace to make mistakes. We are gonna stuff this up along the way, right? And how do we surround ourselves in places where, you know, it's okay to make a mistake and we learn from that mistake? Because that's what learner safety is about. With kids, why do we give them pencils and erasers? Because the eraser is about giving it a go, making a mistake, erasing it, and having another go. But in life, as adults, we think that suddenly we're immune to making mistakes. Like, what is
Yes,
that about?
yes, everything is permanent, right? Right?
Yeah,
People say they had a bad day. I'm like, what happened? And when you find out what happened and you find out how minute it is, right? It may not be minute in that moment, but it is
no.
minute. And what happens is you're like, wow, you're going to allow that 30 minutes, or you're going to allow that 10 seconds or that hour or even 2 hours to ruin your entire day. No, you have bad moments, but you do not have bad days.
And I often sit there and, the example I give all the time is, oh, I ate the wrong food when I went out. So, oh, well, I might as well throw out the diet for the whole week, right? Because of that one, thing that I ate. Instead of going, oh, well, I did that then, but I can get back on board and I can keep going forward. The third level of psychological safety is contribution safety. And this is about how often do we, I don't know about you, but I have spent so much time talking to people around, have you ever had that self talk with yourself and you have that conversation with yourself and you're thinking about ideas and then and your inner voice goes, oh, that's stupid, or you're an idiot, or you're this, you don't even value your own contributions. So we've got to change that inner dialogue. But also, where do we put ourselves in safety in environments where we feel like our contribution is valued, where we are heard, where we are seen, where we are valued? And I
Yes.
think I think the fourth part of that, which we do poorly, is challenger safety, which is I can challenge something. So, Tina, if I've got something that you've said that I don't agree with, I can speak up about it without fear that you're going to hate me for speaking up about it, right? That's a true psychologically safe relationship, is that if we can rumble and disagree on things, but at the end of it, hug it out and love each other as a result of having a different vision and viewpoints, then that's a psychologically safe environment. And too often we don't put ourselves in spaces where we allow people to challenge us or we challenge ourselves enough. We're often playing small because we're too scared to challenge our own thoughts and our own ideas because we can't find that middle ground between negative self-talk and actually having confidence to go, actually, I really need to recalibrate that right now. But also putting ourselves in rooms with loving critics that want us to really succeed, but they're also going to call us out on stuff if they don't think we're doing it the right way. So for me, influence foundationally is around having really strong psychological safety because that then adds on to how you communicate, what rooms you put yourself in, all of the next things. So that's the influence part of the infinite model. Then we've got transformation. And transformation is really taking it from one part to another part. And, Stephen Covey says, talk about beginning with the end in mind. And I
Yes.
remember,
I
I
love the
remember
six
talking,
habits of highly effective people. I love it. Yes.
yeah, but how often do we actually think about the legacy that we want to leave behind? A
Mm.
lot of people are too busy existing and surviving to think about this legacy. And I remember talking to someone one day, and it still like cracks me up a little bit. And they said to me, I have absolutely no intention of leaving a legacy. And I said, oh, I hate to burst your bubble,
Wow.
but I said, but you actually leave a legacy regardless of
Whether
whether
you
you
want to
intend
or
to or
not.
not.
Yeah, it's not
So
intentional.
wouldn't it be better to leave a conscious one than an unconscious one? And that last piece, we started off at the beginning of Infinite Leadership with identity, which is about self. The last one is ecosystem, which I've mentioned before, around putting yourself in the right room, but also, understanding, an ecosystem is fragile. It's strong, but it's fragile. And you only have to have one wrong thing in it to ruin it. And so we have to be really cautious and more discerning about who we let into our ecosystem, but also how do we create that symphony of harmony to create an ecosystem that's harmonious so that we can not just be entrepreneurs 24/7, but we can equally be families and parents and kids and all of the things, right? So that's that ecosystem. So for me, foundationally, this model that I created was what I needed, which is first and foremost often the innovation of entrepreneurship. We create the thing that we wished we had. But really, it's around the fact that micro to macro, somebody who's a really big visionary thinker might need to look at infinite as a whole thing and go through all
Right.
of the pillars and actually sit there and go, well, where am I at right now in each of these pillars? And what do I need to tweak? But somebody might go, okay, for the next quarter, I'm going to focus on ecosystem because I've realized that whilst I'm really strong in who I am, I don't have people around me that can serve me to get to me where I need to go. So you can then, and this is what I love about infinite leadership, is you can either look at it big picture or you can pick a pillar that serves you for the next quarter. Equally, you can look at it individually. If you are an entrepreneur, you could look at it if you've got a small team. What is this? What does our identity look as a team? What does our identity look as an organization? What does our identity look as a parent? So you've got these different levels within infinite leadership at identity. You've got three or four different tiers that you can look at through the lens of. But then you can also pick the big picture or you can go into the smaller picture, depending on what you need in that moment.
Kylie, I need a pause break from you right now because I am overwhelmed. I am overwhelmed that you are such a breath of fresh air and you have a keen sense of knowledge of a lot of things. And I know it comes from experience. I know it
Mm,
comes from helping clients redundantly, right? Because in essence, we all suffer at times with the exact same thing, right?
sure,
And
for
even though
sure.
custom create a solution for each of us, sometimes it is exactly the same thing, correct?
Yeah.
So what I would like from you are two things. One is I would love for you to come back and just talk about elements of success with Global Women Speakers. That's number one. And so if you are not a member of Global Women Speakers, you are going to miss out because the questions that we're going to ask her are going to be insane, right? Number two is I have three more questions for you. Are your children around at all right now?
All of the time. All of the time.
So
They're
you
all with
mean
me.
to tell me you are running a multiple six-figure business with your children around? Like literally,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
not, okay.
Uh,
How?
so they
How
all
do you
still
do this?
live with me. They all still live with me. My older two, well, do you know what? My youngest one has kind of grown up with me. He has memories of me in my corporate job, but he has many more memories of me running a business
Yes.
and me having to navigate and, at times be really creative in how I get him to his football game, and run my business at the same time. Being there. But one of the things that I love the most is we've just moved house, right? And my second child was helping me. My second child was helping me with my bookcase, which is full of books, by the way. It's like this, it's massive. And it was interesting because through this, we were having conversations around entrepreneurship. We were having conversations around emotional agility. We were having conversations around neuroscience because one of the things I think I love to hope that I've instilled in my children is a sense of curiosity. And if I don't know the answer, I'm going to go find it out for them because I want them to be curious. I want them to find it out. And I love it when they ask me questions that I have no idea about, because it means that I have to go away and figure it out for them. And we have these really, really robust conversations. At different times, two of my children have worked in my business, also empowering young people, also, doing behind the scenes stuff because they believe in what I'm doing so much that they are passionate about learning more themselves. And even in school, they would say to me, do I have to go to this class? Because we already know this stuff from talking to you. And I'm like, yeah, you do. And I'm like, but do you listen to me? And they're like, love languages, empowerment.
Oh, no way. Did you say love languages? No, did
Yeah,
you say
yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. That's so awesome. You know what, Kylie? I just remember, when I had my daughter, got pregnant at 18, had my daughter when I was 19 years old. And out of not having, I would say, the support system or
Mm,
the babysitters that I needed, like I
mm,
had to take my daughter with me to classes, to
mm,
lunches, etc. And so I'm glad I did because my daughter, she learned a lot of things that were subconscious. I would take her to the
mm,
library when I was studying. So
mm,
she developed a real studious acumen of just simply studying. And she graduated from college. She has her bachelor's, her master's, and she has her own business, and she's doing some phenomenal things. I'm
Amazing.
super proud of her.
Yeah,
And so when I think about your kids being able to emulate you, right? Because children do not do as you say, they do as you do. And so
for
these
sure.
things that they're hearing you say, and they're just mini yous. And so they're like, Mom, listen, we got our education from you. And I just want to say to the parent that's like, man, I don't have a babysitter, take your baby with you. Take your
Yeah.
toddler with you. Take your teenager with you. Take
Yeah.
your kid with you. I want you to expose them to things. Most parents will look for a babysitter to go to a business meeting. They will look for a babysitter to go to a conference or a seminar. But I'm going to encourage you to take your kid with you. Of course, take snacks. Of course, they can't stay for the whole long time, but just take them with you, expose them, culture them so they can see different things. They can
Even just
hear
Yeah, and even just the conversations in the car from one to the
different.
other, I remember my son, I picked him up from soccer football, got to get it right, got to call it football, not
It's
soccer.
soccer, yeah, soccer and
All the things, right?
yes.
But I remember this conversation on the way home one day, and again, empathetic. I like to be gentle. I don't like to be confrontational. And I said to him, I'd like to suggest you do this. And he said to me, is it optional? And I'm like, no. And he goes, well, could you just tell me that? Because you're confusing me. And for him to have the confidence at 14 years of age to go,
Right.
hey, I realize that you're communicating how you want to communicate, but what I need is really this, right? And my children have been some of my greatest teachers. They have been so
Wow.
phenomenal in teaching me these lessons and it's really nice to see my daughter's actually away. She's just gone away for the weekend with some girlfriends. She saved up the money herself. She's gone. She's had some health stuff. She hasn't let it stop her. You know, we talk about all that stuff. And that's not to say that it's easy. It's not to say that there's not, we're not the Brady Bunch. We don't love each other. We're not singing kumbaya around the dinner table all of the time, but we do have some very funny conversations. We do have some really powerful dialogues. We do have some really robust conversations. In actual fact, your election was part of our dinner conversation for a long time, and it affected my children differently. And so, even the practice of being able to hold space for a different perspective than yours,
Wow.
if nothing else,
Wow.
that is such a powerful, and we've had to practice that. Hey, do you think maybe what she was trying to say was this? Could but my children, and when I go out, I have all of these adults approach me about how amazing my children are because they can hold conversations with adults. They can hold their own in any space that they go to because
Wow.
they've had exposure to that. They haven't been on devices. They haven't been, haven't had their head stuck in a device.
I mean,
They've had to
I
actually
apply
converse.
to, wholeheartedly, because it's really important when you can have a conversation or just simple dialogue with your child versus stuffing an electronic in their face, right? You absolutely have to socialize them where they can
Yeah.
be anywhere with anyone, hold a intelligent conversation, right? And even
Mm.
accept different views. I love the fact that you allow them to differ in opinion. You don't give them their opinion, that they're allowed to gather the information and form their own. That is so powerful. And all of this from a single mom.
Yeah, with
Wow, badass.
100% care, no shared care, 100% care of my children for the last, a long period of time. So it has been a journey. It has been hard. Look, I'm not going to lie, it has been hard. But I also come back to, what you were just talking about. You're taking your daughter to lectures and stuff like that. Your children didn't need you to save them. They needed to watch you save yourself. You
Yeah.
modeled for them, right? You modeled for them that if you didn't like your circumstances, you had the power to change it. It would have been very easy. Excuses are valid. It would have been very easy for you to go, I'm an 18-year-old parent. I'm not going to do this, right? It would have been easy, but you didn't
Absolutely.
because you decided to be the create your own identity. You decided to walk in your own fearlessness, and you decided to innovate. You decided to have this mobility. You decided to have this influence, and that's what you've gone on to create, and this beautiful ecosystem that you've created to model for others what they can achieve if they so desire.
Well, you know what, Kylie, I want to share a different perspective with you. that I'm experiencing or have experienced. And one of them is with my daughter, right? So you're right.
Mm,
They don't need you to save them. They need to watch you save yourself. And I
mm.
believe in my daughter watching me save myself, that she's developed a habit of saving herself. So she
Yep.
doesn't ask for help.
Mm,
She wants to
mm,
save herself. And so
mm.
I want to caution those of you who have small children now, that are watching you save yourself. Also show them the I would say the human part of you, the humanity, right? Where
Yeah,
where it's okay to ask for help. It doesn't where they
for
can
sure.
say, you know what, I
100%.
can't handle this right now. I'm gonna call such and such for help. I can't handle this. I am going to ask someone to help, because you don't want them to pick up that I can do it all by myself and be on the struggle bus where they will
Oh,
not ask for help, where it's
yeah.
there. So I can
So,
tell you sometimes I can see where my daughter is like, no, I don't need any help. If I do, I'll let you know. But I'm like, you
yeah.
rather struggle? Like, here it is. You have a mom that has struggled through it
Mm,
all and who has gained knowledge,
mm,
resources, right?
mm,
To build a legacy. And you want to
mm.
go and learn it all on your own instead of saying,
Yeah,
tap into the resources that you have available to you. Tap
yeah.
into your inheritance, whether it's financial, whether it's knowledge, whether it's educational, tap into those things. So I just want your opinion on that.
Yeah. Well, so I would say I think saving yourself is different from doing it yourself. I think that saving yourself is recognizing that it's okay to ask for help and it's okay. But again, I go back to the ecosystem from the right people.
Right, right.
So I would think that saving yourself is different from doing it yourself. And the other part that I've had to model for my children is that it's okay for me to feel my feelings. And it's
Oh,
okay. And the other part of it is I am going to stuff it up as a parent. And one of the things that you will have heard, people will have heard me say to my kids is, I was the parent that didn't do social media, and still don't. My children didn't get social media until my daughter was 18. She finished high school before she got social media. And the reason being is because as a deputy principal, I had to investigate so much stuff around social media, right? So I would say to my children, because that's really tough for kids when all their friends have got it and they don't. And I would say to them, is it the right decision? I believe so. Am I sure? No. Do I believe in this moment that it's the best decision I can make right now? Yes. Is it my job as your parent to make what I think is the most informed, best decision for you right now? Is there a chance that that decision is wrong? For sure. But right now, based on the information I have, this is the decision I've made. But when I have, you know, done something, I've accused one kid of doing something and it was the other kid, kind of thing, as we've all done as parents. Have you ever been a parent if you haven't ever done that thing? But I repair, practice a repair. Hey, mate, I'm really sorry I did that. Not with a but no, no buts. I'm really sorry that I did that. I didn't handle that the way that I wanted to. Is it okay if I circle back and try again?
mm,
Because we don't practice that as adults
yes.
and
Thank you for
we
that
don't.
distinction, right? Thank you for
Yeah.
that distinction versus doing it yourself, saving yourself versus, you know,
Do
um, not being able to
it.
ask for help. I love that. So thank you for
Yeah.
that. All right. So Kylie, here's the deal.
Yep.
You were absolutely amazing. You just are. And it's obvious that what you're passionate about what you do. It's
Yes.
obvious that you embody all that it takes to be successful for elements of success, right? And another thing that I can say that's obvious is that it's perpetual. You want to see women win. Is that safe to
Yeah.
say?
For sure. This idea of scarcity is such a false, thing that we
Narrative.
have
Yeah.
because there is enough to go around. There is enough. And I would like, we've both been through struggles in our lives, and our goal would be for other people to learn from our wounds, take the wisdom from our wounds so that they don't have to have their own wounds. So we know that everyone has to do a bit of struggle street, but there's certainly some lessons that we could do to help that turn around faster, sooner, better than we maybe experienced because we had to learn it another way. And I'm really passionate. I just think we have so much uh, the young people that are coming through, the mums that are coming through, the entrepreneurs that are coming through. There's such a gift in the world, and we need that to continue to be able to continue to grow and evolve and get to where we're going. And yeah, I'm super passionate about helping people live the life by their own design, create success, what it looks like for them, and help them find the elements that they need to do so.
Wow, I love that. So, couple things. Please go ahead and tell us how to get in contact with you again. We need
Yeah,
LinkedIn, we need your website, we need a phone number. You guys, you know she's in Australia. For those of
yeah,
you who do know, Global Women Speakers is a global international organization. We have women from all over the globe. I had the opportunity to meet Kylie in New York. We were
yay,
we were launching it's called the Impact Book. It was a project, and the visionary was the Sharmore. It was phenomenal. It was phenomenal.
so much fun, and I think that's the other part of it too. We work hard for what we do, but we can also have fun. Had so much fun over there. It was just amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Having fun, like playing harder, right? We work
Yeah,
hard, but playing harder is not a luxury. It is a necessity.
for
It is
sure.
a necessity,
So much
lady.
fun.
Yeah. So Kylie, can I have your word that you will come back just for Global Women Speakers, do a master class or something on elements of success? Because I can tell you in this economy, especially now in America and abroad, people are pivoting now more than ever before. People are looking for a life jacket, they're looking for a lifeboat, they are looking to either switch careers, right? So we know for the next 5 to 10 years, we know for a fact AI technology, we know some of the careers or jobs that we know will be wiped out, period,
Yeah,
right? I had
yeah,
no idea, like when we first started checking checkout, like self-checkout, I'm like,
yeah,
I'm not checking out. I don't work here. Like, that was my philosophy. While others were saying, it's convenient. And then a
yeah,
lot of us were like, we better get in line so we can save the cashier's jobs. But I can
yeah,
tell you, a couple years ago when I was in New York, I went into a Starbucks. It was no one there. I went into that Starbucks. I had to go in with my credit card. I had my
yeah,
credit card. I put it on the detector, the scanner. I walked into the store. I don't know how they did it. The technology amazed me,
mm,
but I picked up items. And on my way out, I just walked out. And do you know, I got a receipt immediately that these were the items that I bought, not
wow,
from the store. No, not one person in the store. It was unbelievable. I'm like, how do they know? How do
yeah,
they know what do I have? And it's charged my credit card. So I'm going to say that there will be things that will be phased out. But on the other hand, there are going to be people that they need to operate the AI, to feed the data into the technology. And so, ladies, I'm just saying, don't wait until you're thirsty to build the well.
yeah,
Pivot now, learn a new skill set. It's imperative because either you're going to learn or you're going to be left behind. Don't be
yeah,
left behind. You have people counting on you, your family, your children, your ancestors. There are people that are counting on you. And so, Kylie, I just want to know, like, what do you say about AI technology or the way of the future?
yeah. Look, I think it's really overwhelming for many, many people. And I think certainly our generation, which is, I like to say the 18 to 21-year-olds, but I'm joking. We are very much, fear driven around what this could look like. But I think the reality is the future of work is always going to be human. And that means that there are still going to need to be the technical skills that we learn might look different, but you're still going to have to be able to create influence. You're still going to have to overcome fears. You're still going to have emotional agility as you're navigating these constant changes in the workforce. That will never change, no matter what technical skill that you have to pick up. So I think by understanding yourselves, being able to reflect, review, and recalibrate, you're putting yourself in good stead ahead of the people that are only wholly and solely focused on technical skills. So it's a both and rather than an either or. I think that's so imperative in the work that we're doing in the future. And I think, I was listening to a podcast the other day and they were talking about the fact that there's going to be more value placed on things that don't require AI. So I think we'll come full circle. Do you remember, in the 80s and the 90s, we would make handmade cards and we would do all this kind of stuff. And they've kind of lost their value because people want efficiency, they want fast, they want all this kind of stuff. But now some of that handmade stuff is actually coming back as chic and popular, and people are willing to buy into it because it's not automated and because it's not robotic and because it's not that. So, it depends where we go, what we value at any given time. And I think it's ever evolving. But what is going to stay strong is the fact that we need those human skills and we cannot underestimate. And I believe the people that will thrive in this world are the people that can nail the human skills, not just the technical skills.
Wow. Spoken like a true, like, innovator, spoken like a visionary, spoken like someone that has the blueprint. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you tap into Kylie. She has the blueprint. If you were here listening just to a snippet of what Kylie shared, like, it was explosive. And if you take those tools and put them in your toolkit, those, ladies and gentlemen, will be your elements of success. And so I am Dr. Tina D. Lewis. I am the founder of Global Women Speakers. I am here with the Kylie, the president of Elements of Success. You guys, she is from Australia. We aim here at Global Women Speakers and on our Sunday Speaker Series to put you in the room virtually with women who not are talking about it, writing about it, but women who are in the trenches building empires, legacies while raising babies. They're doing the same thing. So, ladies, listen. Number one, tap into Kylie immediately. Follow her on LinkedIn and the website. Give them the website again, Kylie.
Yeah, elements, number 4, success.com.au, and Kylie, Kylee, Leota, Leota on LinkedIn.
Love that. And number 2, make sure you follow me, Dr. Tina D. Lewis. Subscribe to this channel. Kylie, do you have a YouTube channel by any chance?
I do. Elements for Success has its own YouTube channel as well. So
I
you can
love
follow
that.
us on there as well.
There you guys go, right? YouTube University. Her channel is on YouTube University. I don't know about you, but I would love to just go and subscribe to Kylie's channel. Listen to some of the nuggets, listen, she's invested just like I have, thousands to tens of thousands, and in some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars in our personal development and to the things that we want, right? We wanted to create a lifestyle that we don't need a vacation from. We wanted to do what we love to do because, ladies and gentlemen, here's the deal. Anybody, Kylie, myself included, can go and make money doing anything. But there comes a point in your life and in your career where you must get past a point of simply earning money and being successful and start living a life of significance and contribution. And that's where we are now. And so I want you to go right now, follow Kylie on all social media platforms, LinkedIn and YouTube, as well as go to her website, send her a contact me note.
Yes, please.
Get in contact with Kylie immediately. And if you would like to be a guest on our Sunday Speaker Series, you have a message. You would love to share your story, sell and offer your products and your services, then Global Women Speakers is the vehicle that will allow you to do that. Stop taking detours. Jump on the bandwagon for Global Women Speakers. We speak and travel all over the world. And just go to globalwomenspeakers.com, globalwomenspeakers.com. You can also follow me on all things social at Tina D. Lewis. That's it. Simple social. Make sure all of your things are congruent. You don't want to be sexy mama on YouTube, hot mama on TikTok, and then, Jennifer Lopez on Facebook. You want it to be all congruent where people can find you. Ladies and gentlemen, attention is the new drug. People need attention. People need attention. And then once you get their attention, what are you going to do to keep it? right? What are you going to do to keep it? Deliver extreme value, make their life easier, solve a problem, do like Kylie, and be compassionate. Have the empathy for them to be successful. And ladies, with that being said, I am Dr. Tina D. Lewis. This is Kylie. I'm going to ask as we leave, Kylie, if you have any departing words before we say bye-bye. Over to you.
I just think I would love everyone to know that you have the power to walk in alignment with the best version of you. Stop giving away your power and remember to reflect, review, and recalibrate and to create infinite opportunities and infinite possibilities for yourself in this life. Have a great one. It's so been wonderful to be here.
Wow. 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 Elements for success.com.au. Wow. I love it, Kylie. I am blown away. I love talking to you.
Oh, lovely.
Not only are you going to come back with Global Women Speakers, I have a larger request. We would
Hit
love to
me.
have you come to the US. How can you meet us in Dubai for GlobalCon in November? Or can you come to the US? Or can we meet you in Thailand? Can we meet you in
Let's
Paris?
do it.
Can
Let's
we meet
work
you in Italy? We would love to have you in person.
for sure. I'd love it. Can't wait.
Yay, I love it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. I am just in awe of the things, the level of competency, her skill set that she shared with you guys. Because I know for a fact, if it was not on Sunday Speaker Series, if it was not for Global Women Speakers, it will be a pretty investment for what she just shared. And she's not just talking. I'm going to ask you to challenge me on this. Reach out to her, hire her, and I promise you, you will have the elements for success. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dr. Tina D. Lewis. That is my story, and I'm sticking to it. We'll see you next Sunday on Sunday Speaker Series. Bye for now. Mwah. Bye.
Bye.